Colony in Space, while containing some enjoyable elements, ultimately suffers from being a 2.5-hour story without very much to do during its runtime. Now, this serial is a little bit monumental for the Third Doctor because this is the first story where he leaves Earth, which seems like it should be a somewhat special and memorable episode, but surprisingly there isn't that much to remember about this one. We open with this scene of the Time Lords, and they're discussing some rather vague things, and it's not totally clear what they're talking about, but we do get the full picture of it later into the actual serial, and that opening scene is frankly far too brief. It really rushes through a few lines of dialogue, and I don't know why it needed to be handled the way it was. It just didn't quite work for me, especially when considering that the story probably should have been more monumental as, the first one where he does actually get to leave Earth after being stranded there by these very Time Lords. But anyways, to break it down simply, the Time Lords have a problem. A file on a doomsday weapon has been stolen, and they believe that that was done by the Master. They want the Doctor to take care of this, and I'm not entirely sure why, but possibly because it is a bit dangerous. So the Doctor and Jo are sent away in the TARDIS, and the way it plays out, they actually have no clue that the Time Lords have temporarily fixed his TARDIS. He just tries to use it, and it takes him to a quarry planet.
Before I was stranded on Earth, I spent all my time exploring new worlds and seeking the wonders of the universe.
But you don't know what's out there.
Then let's find out. Don't you want to set foot on another world?
And it's actually until episode 4 of this 6-part story where the Master even shows up in this one, which is a long time. And I do feel comfortable mentioning that he's in this one because he's mentioned within the first 20 seconds and he's on the actual cover of it, so it doesn't feel like a legitimate spoiler. But Roger Delgado does go a decent ways in terms of not letting this story be as boring as it would be without his presence. So I really did appreciate that because he has some great scenes with the Doctor that are genuinely fascinating and engaging.
Look! That, Doctor, is the sun that gives life to the planet Earth that you hold in such affection.
I do know a little basic astronomy.
Although, I have to say, up until this point, the Master has been regularly using mind control, and for some reason he never used it in this story, even though there were parts where it really would have helped him, and I'm not sure entirely why that is. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong about this one somehow, but I don't think that he used it once in this entire thing, and it would have been quite useful. I didn't catch any explanation for it in the story either, so I found that to be a bit odd. But still, this story didn't have a ton in it besides that to keep me interested. It feels like a pretty average 4-parter which got dragged into a 6-parter. You might even be able to get away with cutting this one down to 3 parts, but that is possibly a bit of a stretch. I didn't feel like they did a particularly good job of padding this one out from this pretty basic concept for an actual story.
You've landed practically in their laps.
I never liked walking. I'd better go and make friends. Close down all systems, we shall be here sometime.
There's a conflict between these different people on this planet, the colonizers and the mining corporation. There's also been attacks by a giant monster, killing the colonizers and wreaking havoc. And the way all these elements play out is, fine and slow. I don't know. All of these elements that maybe could have been good just got drawn out so much, and I never felt that they did very much with them.
I'm as surprised as you are. How long have you been here?
More than a year now. You realize this planet has been assigned for colonization?
No, not according to my company. We've been assigned full mineral rights.
Then your people must have made a mistake.
Or yours. In any event, we're both here.
So it's basically gotten to the point with Jon Pertwee's Doctor where the action elements here have gotten to be a little bit much for me. I think there were multiple cliffhangers in the serial that were resolved by the Doctor's proficiency in combat. It just feels a tad lazy to me, and it's not my favorite way to portray the Doctor. Although I do love Jon Pertwee as this character, and all of his scenes with the Master are great, but perhaps the action scenes are just a little bit too much for me.
Don't believe it. It's bigger inside than out.
Yes. That's because the TARDIS is dimensionally transcendental.
What does that mean?
It means that it's bigger inside than out.
Jo Grant really does quite little in this one. This is her 4th serial, and by Liz Shaw's 4th serial, I already really liked her and felt I had a grasp on that character. But with Jo Grant, It just feels like she's there to just be around and not do a heck of a lot. She kind of just fills the requirement that the Doctor has a companion, and I haven't seen anything really to make me like her as a character or be very compelled by her, although I'm still open to that changing. This one notably has very little of the Brigadier, and weirdly, I didn't actually realize that until the very end of the episode, and it kind of feels appropriate that we should have a serial away from him, because even though I don't have much against him, when there's too much of him, it feels just, too much, and this break felt appropriate. I almost wish the show had done a similar thing with the Master, maybe in the last episode, just because as great as Roger Delgado is, giving him a break in the middle would make his other appearances feel more special, or maybe he should have been absent from The Mind of Evil and Colony in Space, but that's hard to say. I'll probably touch back on this during the Season 8 review and overview. Overall, I found Colony in Space to be a relatively dull affair. It has some entertaining elements, and everything with the Master and the Doctor is the best part of the whole serial, but the rest is relatively uninteresting. This story drags for way too long and ultimately winds up being my least favorite Jon Pertwee story so far. Although it had some good elements, it was ultimately disappointing to me, and I'm going to give Colony in Space a rating of 6.5 out of 10. And that's going to do it for now, folks. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the story down below if you feel like doing so. I'm hoping there are people that like this one more than me. I'm expecting there are some, but also I know this isn't a story that gets very much love, so there's probably not a lot of those people out there, but who knows, we'll just have to see. And with that said, I do hope to see you around this upcoming Sunday for my review of The Daemons, a story I am very excited to talk about, but if not, that is absolutely fine, so long as you know that I appreciate your time here today. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.
Is the atmosphere poisonous?
No, it's quite healthy. Similar to Earth before the invention of the motor car.